Hey guys, how's it going? We are doing a little bit of a different video today, just because I'm seeing this come up on not only my channel, but a ton of other channels and people talking about fertilizer. And I want to come in and show you what I use, how I use it, why I use it, with proof that you should be fertilizing. So we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about water soluble, we're going to talk about synthetic, and we are going to talk about organic fertilizers. I use all of them in my garden. I don't discriminate against which fertilizers I use or which ones other people should or shouldn't use in their gardens. And we're going to talk about the application, which ones to use for what in your garden, why you should be using them. And then I have a couple plants to show you that I have fertilized and a couple plants that I haven't fertilized to show you why it's super important to be fertilizing your plants. So let's get into it. We're going to start with one that I'm going to kind of slowly phase out of my garden for no other reason than it is just hard for me to get my hands on. So the first one that we're going to be talking about is this one right here. This is the Proven Winners water soluble fertilizer. This is a 24, 12, and 17. And what that is your nitrogen, your phosphate, and your potash. And those are three very important things to your garden. They come in all different ranges. I have ones right here. This is a 462. Don't get too hung up on the numbers. A fertilizer is a fertilizer at the very end of the day. This one right here is a synthetic fertilizer. I do use it on all of my annuals. Like I said, I'm going to be phasing this out just because it's hard for me to get my hands on. I have to order it through an online source, and it's the only way that I'm able to get my hands on it. And I don't love doing that. I want to get rid of as much carbon footprint as I can possibly get rid of, at least on our property. That's my goal. So this one is a really good one, but it is going to be phased out. I have a container and a half. Usually when I buy it, I'll buy 3 to 4 containers at a time, just so I can, not have to pay for that much shipping or whatever it might be. Like I said, don't get too hung up on the numbers. As long as you're using a fertilizer, it's great. This one is fabulous because it is a little bit high. It's a lot higher in numbers, and that's really great for annuals. I don't use this on anything that I'm going to eat. So I have like a bay tree, a lemon tree, a lime tree, my vegetable garden. This is synthetic, which means it's processed chemicals, and I don't want to add that to anything that I'm going to be eating. So this just normally goes on all the annuals in the garden, but I found something else that I'm going to be using this year that's also a water soluble. So this one's really cool. What it does is you order this, it comes with your bag. It gives you 2 bags. It's recommended that you're fertilizing every 3rd watering. And I do not do that. There's no way that I could do that. The 3rd watering would basically mean that I'm fertilizing every other day, and with the cost of this stuff, it's just too much. So I fertilize once a week with this fertilizer when I'm using it, and I'll show you guys the other one that I'm going to be using, which I'm going to stay on the same schedule of once a week. So once a week with this, and it gives you all of your instructions on the back of it. I use 2 different watering cans. Usually I'll go around with one, Brent will go around with the other, and we just tag team and get everything fertilized all at once. So with this, you want to use 1 tablespoon per gallon of fertilizer. It comes with this handy little scoop that shows you 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon right here on the little scoop. I really like this little scoop. I actually really like how it provides me with that. So with this one, 1.5 gallons, we usually put like 1.5, and then this one's like 2.5 gallons, so we'll put like 3. With synthetic, you do want to be careful because you can over-fertilize, and what that means is you're going to burn your plants with synthetic, and how strong this one is. That's why you want to be careful with it. But it is a really good fertilizer if it's easy to get your hands on. I'm all about use what you can get your hands on, hence the array of different brands and different fertilizers that I have. I like to just use whatever is like easily accessible. I can run down a couple minutes down the street and I can get any of these. So I'm going to show you guys how to use this one and what plants I will use this one on today also. The one that I plan to replace this one with is this guy right here. And I've already had really good success with this. I've really been enjoying this. This is Liquid Plant Food Big Bloom from Fox Farm. This is for organic gardening. So not only am I going to use this on my annuals, I can also use this on all of my food. With this one right here, we've already really loved using this. I'm able to get this right up the street. So I'm really happy with it. This one you want to shake intensively. It settles at the bottom, so you have to shake it a lot to get the sediment to mix into it. This fertilizer is a 0.5.07, so it is very low with all of those things. So you do need quite a bit more, but because it's an organic one, the numbers don't need to be quite as high. This one is made from earthworm castings and bat guano. And I've really loved it. I've used it on my seedlings, and I've already used it in some of the containers, and I'm seeing huge success with it. So I've been really, really happy with it. I know it's kind of crazy seeing these numbers be so significantly lower than these higher numbers, but like I said, this one's synthetic, this one is all organic, so you don't need to have the same numbers. So with this one, I've been using it mostly on seedlings, and on here it says 1 tablespoon per gallon. So that is a very weak feeding for your seedlings. You don't want to feed them something very strong. Anything that I have growing in my grow room, this is what I've been using. And then it shows here also a heavy feeding. You want to use 1/2 of a cup per gallon of water. So that's why I say that these numbers are very different, because you're using a ton more of this one versus this one. This stuff is half the price though of this stuff, so I do think it's worth it. Plus this is an all organic fertilizer, which I really like. General feeding is 4 tablespoons per gallon. I have been going in with a little bit heavier of a feeding because I haven't gone in with a slow release fertilizer for a lot of my plants this season. So this is one that I am going to be using heavily in the garden. This is the Fox Farm. I've really actually loved all of their products, even their soil, and it's just really, really easy for me to get my hands on, and it's very affordable, at least in my area. I know some people have a hard time finding this, and when they do find it, it is top dollar, so I am sorry about that. This is what I'll be using in my garden though. Like I said, I recommend you use what you can find, but I am trying to switch over to a more organic method in my garden. Just to like elaborate just a little bit, because it is very confusing, I'm gonna put a link in the description down below of a source that kind of broke it down, and I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version of this. So basically, with synthetic, the chemicals that your plants need are already broken down, and that's why these numbers are so much higher. It's already broken down, your plant is going to absorb it instantly. This one, with the all natural organic fertilizers, these numbers are almost always lower. Like I said, this is like a 0.5 and a 0.7. This is going to have to break down in the earth organically and slowly break down. It's much faster than a slow release fertilizer, but it is slower than a synthetic fertilizer. So this will have to break down, and then your plants can absorb it. So that's why I say that the numbers don't fully matter. But we're going with organic that has a much lower number. So I don't want to shock anybody with like, okay, Robbie, why are you going in with something that was a 24, 12, 17, and now you're going in with something that is a 0.5, 0.7. So that is why. I hope that makes sense. And also, just for reference, synthetic isn't fully bad. When you buy produce from the grocery store, it's usually sprayed with a synthetic fertilizer, unless you're buying organic, which that gets pricey. So you are still eating this, and it's just not something that I want to put in my garden. So we're going organic. That way I can use one product on everything in my garden and not even worry about it. So synthetic doesn't fully mean totally harmful in your garden. Just to clear that up, I know synthetic is kind of a scary word, but you shouldn't be that scared of it. The next thing that we're going to talk about, these are slow release fertilizers, and these are really important to use. I use them at the beginning of planting anything in my garden, and I use them throughout the growing season. I use them much less than I use liquid or water-soluble fertilizers. With using slow release fertilizers, I go in at planting, and then I usually go in 2 times a year. So this one right here, this is the Stone cirtus-tone. I use this on any of my citrus in my garden, and this just gets used, I think I use it 3 times a year. This has all the instructions. It actually says feed in late winter, late spring, and fall. So this is a 3 feed application, and it shows you the tree height. If your tree is about 3 feet, you want to use about 2 pounds or 6 cups of this fertilizer for that tree. And that is really important. You want to be able to get the best fruit from your plant. You want to be able to have really good success with your plants. So I do use this. I am super late this year to feeding this plant. I kind of have all of this just sitting in the back, and I forgot about it. So I am going to go through today, and I am going to feed my citrus. I have a lemon and a lime tree, and I'm going to feed them. They're each going to get quite a bit of fertilizer. This is a lot more fertilizer than I normally go in with a lot of other things, but both my citrus are in containers, so they rely on me to feed them. If they were in the ground, they can pull most nutrients from the ground, but that fertilizer is going to really give you that bigger bloom and the bigger fruit and stronger trees. So it is really important. There are some videos that I see circulating of people talking about you don't need to add fertilizer to your soil. Your soil has everything it needs, but that's just not always the case. It is really good to do a soil test and you can see what you were deficient in, but you have to also remember that every time you put a plant in the ground, you are taking nutrients from that soil. So you really do need to be feeding and fertilizing your plants. I am a huge advocate on fertilizing. This is the Espoma Organics. I do like this one because this is for citrus, but this is also something that is really hard for me to get. I am in California and Espoma is just not readily available everywhere for me. The Stone is readily available for me to just buy at most places. So this is another one that I might phase out and I'll be switching to. If the Stone has something for citrus, I'll probably be doing that. I do use the Espoma Rose-tone also on all of my roses. What I really love is a lot of these companies have gone through and they've told you, buy this one for these plants, buy this one for those plants. This one right here is an all-purpose fertilizer. So I really, really appreciate that because it does get confusing on, okay, well, can I use this? Can I not use that? This fertilizer, also being an organic one, is a 526. It has 5% nitrogen, 2% phosphates, and 6% potash. And then it also has calcium at 5% and magnesium at 0.5%. So this one is a really, really good one to use for all of your citrus, and there is a list also of other things to be able to use this one. I've had really good luck with this. I only have 2 citrus plants, so you can see I haven't gone through a whole lot of this one, but we will be fertilizing today. The other thing that I really love is just a general all-purpose fertilizer. I think all-purpose fertilizers are super important. I go in for the most part anything that I put in the ground with a all-purpose fertilizer. I was for the longest time using the Espoma Biotone or the Espoma Plant Tone because I was kind of able to get my hands on some of those, but it wasn't super easy. I've since switched to the Stone Organics. This is the Sure Start. This is their all-purpose fertilizer. This is the one that you use right at the beginning. This is a 462, and it shows here on the back. I really like this in a like crystal clear square. So you're going in with a 4-inch pot. You just want to use about 1 teaspoon of fertilizer. For larger pots, like 1 gallon, 2 gallon, 5 gallon, it goes up. So it's 2 tablespoons, 4 tablespoons, 7 tablespoons, 7 gallon is half a cup. I tend to over fertilize. With organic fertilizers, you don't have to worry about burn so much because like I said, those nutrients aren't like super readily available. It's a slow release. You're not going to introduce all of these nutrients all at once to your plants. So it's not going to shock them and burn your plants. If you're going in with something more synthetic, you do want to be a little cautious about that because like I said, it can burn your plants. So this is the one that I go in with almost everything. There are a few plants that really don't want any fertilizer when you plant them. And with those, I just put them directly in the ground. But for the most part, I'm going in with a slow release fertilizer. This gets fertilized at the beginning of planting and then 1, sometimes 2 times a year if I'm actually on top of it. But I do try to go through at least 1 more time in the growing season and give everything just a little pick-me-up halfway through to really just get them going. Our growing season is mostly spring, fall, and partial winter. Our season tends to really slow down. Everything stops blooming and producing in the middle of summer, which is so crazy. We just get too hot, and so things don't produce that well in the summertime. So I give them a feeding at springtime when I'm planting, and then I usually give them a second feeding late summertime just so that they can get through the rest of the end of summer and through fall and continue to produce for us. So I have so far really loved this. I've gone through 2 bags of it, and I think I'm going to be picking it up in a 50-pound bag because I can actually find that. I'm going to say this really quick. I'm going to read it off the phone because I get them confused on which one is for which, but I want to be clear on it. So nitrogen is for foliar growth of your plants to give you that big, full, beautiful, deep green on your plants. And then phosphorus is for root development to give you big, beautiful, healthy, strong roots to let your plant continue to grow. And potash or potassium is for strengthening your roots and improves plant resilience. So that's why it's important to get those things. You want to make sure that you've got something that has, the good numbers on it, all organic, that has those things in it. That's going to give you the best possible chance of your plants living and surviving and growing and thriving through the growing season. I want to talk about one thing that I do add to almost all of my slow release fertilizers, and it has been a topic on with many different people. And so some people say it's a waste of time, some people say it's a waste of money, some people say it's really good, some people say they can't live without it. So far I've loved it. So I'm going to talk about why I love it, and that is the Mycorrhizal fungi. And I have loved this stuff. So it's just a fungi that lives in your soil naturally. And this is just pure mycorrhizae fungi, and I have loved it. And what it does is it's burrowing little holes in your roots, and that fungi goes in there and promotes really strong, healthy root growth, and it makes it so that your plants, everywhere those little holes are, it sends out extra roots. And so this is a really good thing to, I think, personally add if your fertilizer doesn't have it, or if you just want a little extra bit. On here, this shows you what to do if you're planting a 1 to 3 gallon container. You just want to add 1 to 2 tablespoons of this extra in your holes. I tend to just like open my fertilizer bags, and I just tend to like take it and I just dump it in there. I just dump a couple handfuls in my fertilizer bags when I first get them, just to give just a little extra. Go ahead and, you know, shake it up. And then we have extra of the fungi in there. I've done a deep dive into it, and there are people who think that it's an absolute waste of money, and by the time you buy it and purchase it, you don't know how old it is, and the fungi is dead because it is a living organism. Personally, I love it. So far, I've used it, and it's been really, really good for me in my garden. And like, this is pure, fresh, and alive organic root enhancer. I personally learned about it from Monty Don. That was when I first heard about it, and it like captivated my brain, and I was obsessed with learning about it. So I went into deep dives, and I personally have seen huge success with this. So I buy it just in this bag. This is from a company called Extreme Gardening. I want to say this was like 20 bucks or something like that. Just look up extra mycorrhizae fungi, and you can just add it into slow release fertilizers, or you can just throw a little tiny bit inside any hole. So let me show you guys the application for these really quick. I'm going to show you both applications for synthetic and for the Fox Farms right here, just because I need to fertilize my plants. And so we're gonna get this done. I don't actually measure anything. I just eyeball it. I think I've been doing this long enough now that I've kind of got it figured out. I need to do a heavy feeding on some of these things that I've got in the garden. So I'm going to probably use, I've got less annuals than I do other things in the garden. So I'm gonna go in with synthetic in this one, and I'm going to go in with my organics in this one. We'll start with this one from Proven Winners. Two and a half, something like that. For safest results, I would just follow the directions to a T. But like I said, I've been doing this long enough that I think I got it kind of figured out, and especially with what my plants want. This one, you have to shake it. So we're also going to do a heavy feeding, so I need about half a cup of this stuff. And this stuff is brown. There is zero smell to it. It doesn't smell like anything. I opened it up and you can't even tell that there's anything in here. I thought that it was going to have a horrendous smell. I had used a fish fertilizer once, and I hated the smell of it. It was just awful. I couldn't even finish watering, and I ended up just getting rid of the entire container because I couldn't do it. So we're gonna go in about half a cup. Now we're gonna fill these up with water and fertilize some of our plants, and then I will show you some of the plants that this year I have not fertilized and ones that I have fertilized, so you can see what a difference it actually makes. While we're in the vegetable garden, let's talk about what I have fertilized and what I haven't fertilized this year as an experiment, and what I won't be fertilizing. So I've got corn right down here, and I won't be fertilizing that. Corn does really well in kind of crummy soil, so I won't be fertilizing the corn at all this year. But I have potatoes and garlic and tomatoes, and those are all very heavy feeders. So let's talk about this. I've got two different potatoes. I've got one here, and I have one there. And I would like to know if you can instantly tell the difference of which one got fertilizer and which one did not get fertilizer this year. So this is the one clearly that did not get fertilizer this year. This is the first feeding that it's gotten. It's got yellow leaves, it's got spotting on the leaves, and it is much, much shorter. I do know there are potatoes growing in there, but just from the foliar growth, I am seeing quite a difference in this. So we'll see how the harvest goes, but I can tell no fertilizer, there was clearly a difference. This did get almost all brand new soil in this container. I think like from like here up, it got a bag and a half of brand new, really good soil. So it was very full of nutrients, but no other fertilizer than that. And then over here, this potato that is obviously much happier, growing much longer. The leaves on it are a much deeper green. It's more vibrant. It looks so much happier. Has actually gotten 2 feedings this year. These potatoes are very, very heavy. I haven't dug around in this one, so I'm not sure if there are potatoes, but you can see by the foliar growth that this one looks like it's doing a lot better. We'll see when I go to harvest, but just from running the experiment of fertilizer versus no fertilizer, I think we have a clear winner. The other thing that I fertilize a lot is my garlic. Now it looks like it's not doing well, but I'm actually almost ready to harvest this garlic. I have probably another 2 weeks and then I'll be ready to harvest my garlic. And I'm going to say that is because I fertilized it heavy constantly, and also because I planted it early, so that helps. So I was able to grow this over the winter, and now it's starting to die back. I know most people won't be harvesting garlic for a few more months, but I am going to say that this got all really good soil, and it got a ton of liquid and slow release fertilizer. I fertilized this thing, I think 3 times this got fertilizer, and 1 liquid fertilizer. So far, I'm going to say fertilizer for the win. So I'll go in for things like those with the organic fertilizers and things like that. I don't want to use my synthetic on that just because I don't want store-bought produce from my own garden. I want to be able to put all organic, natural things in my garden. And so I go in with the Fox Farm fertilizer for anything like that, and most of the other things around the property. Let me show you where I'm going to be using the synthetic fertilizer, and let me show you 2 plants that I have not fertilized this growing season at all. They're performing well, but I can tell that they are struggling hard. And let me show you ones that have gotten fertilizer multiple times and what they're doing. So these right here are some petunias. These are called Supertunia Silverberry, I think is what these ones are. And you see they're full of flowers. These have been wintered over for a year, so they are much older, but if you look closely, look at the plant. They're not thriving, they're not happy. See all of the yellow on this? I didn't want to fertilize these because I really wanted to see how important is it to actually fertilize your annuals. Well, I think we have an answer that it is very important to fertilize them. I'm noticing that the blooms are much smaller, they're spaced out, and the green on these is not green. When it first started growing this season, before it really started using all of its energy, all of the growth was this color right here. It has since changed to a yellow color. Let me show you plants now that are also petunias that I have fertilized multiple times. So these right here are called Super Calpachoas. These are a cross between Calibrachoas and petunias. These have been fertilized when I planted them, and then they've been fertilized 2 times this season already. I think we can see a clear difference in the amount of blooms. And then let's get in here and you can see the foliar growth color. It's a very rich green color. And so these have gotten fertilizer a ton, and they were very, very upset with me for a while. And you can see these are just mounds of pink right now. So I think that's a testament to fertilizing and not fertilizing. So I'm gonna go in now and I'm gonna fertilize those with the synthetic fertilizer, because that's going to instantly feed those plants and they can handle that. And I'm not eating them, so I'm not that worried about it. So that's something that I would use the synthetic fertilizers on versus something that I would want to use an organic fertilizer on. So I really don't mind synthetics at all. I just am trying to switch over, and just mostly for the access. It's so much easier for me to get these other ones. I still love this product. I still think it's amazing. But I just wanted to show you guys an experiment that literally has been going on for months of fertilizer, no fertilizer. So let's fertilize those. And the very last thing to do is just to go in with a handful of this, or a couple handfuls, depending on your container size, scratch it into the surface of that container for all of your plants that are growing in containers, or for some of your plants that are really heavy feeders in the landscape. I'll go in around hydrangeas with a fertilizer. I'll usually use Rose-tone on those. Specifically, anything in containers gets a healthy feeding of this, and then just anything that is also a heavy feeder. I'll go in with all of my trees, my evergreens, my arborvitaes. I go in and feed those with a couple handfuls, and I just scratch it right into the surface and then water, and it slowly releases down into the soil. So I hope that that helps. I hope that clears up some confusion about fertilizers, what to use, when to use, how to use, and why you should use or shouldn't use. So let me know in the comments down below if you're actually using fertilizer or not, and maybe if I changed your mind. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye guys.